I'm Charles Coves, Australasia's passion provocateur. Welcome to this week's episode of the Charles Coves Show, whether you're watching on Rumble, on YouTube, or listening via one of the many podcast platforms. I'll discuss a number of challenging local or global issues and then discuss how the self-awareness and passion principles can help you deal with them and help you make a contribution in solving some of those challenges. And at the same time, how to live elegantly and effectively in the context and in the environment of those challenges. The show notes give you the links to my background and also the foundational principles of this show, and also give you links to our websites coves.com and charlescoves.com, where you can find my books, my passion programs, and a bunch of free resources that will help you live your life on your terms. So let's go with today's big impact issues and how they impact on your life and how to handle them. As many of you know, I practiced law for 20 years. I love the law. The law is such a crucial element in crafting a functioning society, not a broken down society. The rule of law really means the reign of law. It means the importance that the law has in governing the society, in governing people. And good laws make for good society, bad laws make for bad society. It's as simple as that. Of course, each person will have a different view about what a good law is, what a bad law is. A dictator will have totally different views on good laws versus my views on those laws. The rule of law works to maintain a good society when people respect the law. When people respect the laws, when people respect the administration of the laws and the interpretation of those laws. When the rule of law fails, people take the law into their own hands. They cease to respect the law. I say the rule of law is being trashed, and societies all around the world are paying a big price. And we in Australia in particular are paying a big price. People in America are paying a big price for the trashing of the rule of law. People in Canada, I have friends in all three places, and the people in UK, their lives are being significantly harmed because the rule of law is being trashed. One of the important reasons why the rule of law can be trashed is because most people don't understand the law. The law is not taught at schools. It's a deliberate strategy by the globalist cabal, by the globalist, socialist, Marxist exercise in one global humanity to not teach the law. And if people don't understand the law, then they're not going to complain about it because they'll simply be told, you don't understand the law, keep your mouth shut. I call on governments to immediately implement proper teaching to primary and secondary students in all countries how their respective constitutions operate and how their political system operates. The failure to so teach these important principles is a clear strategy in minimizing the effectiveness of democracy. Now, I'm going to give you in this show, and it's necessarily a short show because I don't want to keep you for too long. I will give you specific evidence of this trashing in action. When the rule of law fails, and it is failing, what it gives rise to is bikie gangs and other criminal gangs who are then used to, if you like, implement justice, implement fairness. In Australia, for example, the debt collection rules are literally non-functional, and if you don't have security over a debt, you will not be able to recover it. So people then resort to bikie gangs, to other criminal gangs, to be able to impose that justice. I say that's a very bad thing. So let me give you examples of the trashing of the rule of law that's harming you, that's harming me, that's harming people all around the world. The first is the issue of legal standing in cases that are brought before the courts. And this standing, legal standing is the term, this principle is being used by governments and by nefarious-minded people to stop proper matters being brought before the courts. In Australia, I'll give you two specific examples of which I have close contact. One is with the Australian Vaccination Risks Network and the failure of the courts to give standing to people who wanted to protect babies from medical injections. And then secondly, the great work of Julian Gillespie, a former barrister, and the contamination of the mRNA injections, and then the alteration to your genome from these mRNA injections that required the approval of the gene regulator. Now, that case, the latter case, was not given standing, nor was the AVN case. And the judge who presided over that decision not to grant standing is Judge Helen Rofe in the Australian Federal Court. It then transpires, after she hands her judgment down, that she had for years been representing big pharmaceutical companies. Get that? Extraordinary. No declaration of her bias, no declaration to the litigants to say, listen, I've been acting for pharmaceutical companies. She should have immediately disqualified herself. So not only is the rule of law being trashed because judges aren't honest in their own biases, but then the cases aren't even being heard by using this principle of legal standing in previously unheard of ways. The courts should be keen to litigate important points. Now, the judges, then the question of, are they being lazy? Why aren't they wanting to hear these cases? And my friend John Bodwin, who lives in Massachusetts, has done a magnificent paper on this whole issue, that judges who deny standing to litigants, to people who want to take governments to examine government decisions, are denied standing. What that does is it does not clarify the law. And if you can't get clarity on the law, you are trashing the rule of law. Clarity is needed. Words are complicated. Concepts are complicated. And then our lives are becoming ever more complicated. So the judges need to be willing to hear these matters. What that does is has remarkable benefits in economic efficiency and benefits to the country. The next matter is the Monica Schmidt case, where Monica was arrested by the police on 3 occasions. She then takes the Victorian government and the police to court to complain about the false arrest. She wins 2 out of the 3, and then she has an order for costs made against her. The government knows it's in the wrong. The story is a shocking story. Monica Schmidt didn't have enough money to brief barristers, so she appeared herself. But the fact is the government fought the case hard. They had a whole battery of lawyers against this one woman fighting for her rights. And she won 2 of the 3 cases. And then because she lost the 3rd, as the judge ruled, and the judge was reasonably fair in this case, but the government knew it was wrong, and it threw all these resources against one of the members of the public. And that's the point. The government has unlimited resources to fight arcane, tight legal points, and on a pure technicality, because they've got the resources, they might find a technicality that on any common sense doesn't make sense. And I'm telling you that the costs order against Monica Schmidt in the Victorian, I think it was the Victorian County Court, is a disgrace, literally a disgrace. Fortunately, she is appealing that decision. 2 of the 3 arrests were held to be unlawful. Next, in the High Court of Australia, used to be a highly respected court around the world. Well, Janet Albrechtsen in the Australian newspaper has done a wonderful exercise on properly analysing how the law is badly being applied. And the case I want to mention is called the Love case, Love versus the Commonwealth of Australia. And in 2020, the High Court created a brand new constitutional right out of thin air. not to be treated as an alien in favour of Indigenous people who were not born in Australia and who were citizens of another country. All they had to do was claim some, quote, spiritual or metaphysical, end quote, connection with Australia. How about that, eh? Talk about crap. And the High Court bought this crap, and I call it crap, and I call this political interventionism by the highest court in this country. Also happens in many other countries around the world, and that's the problem. That's what's trashing the rule of law. Alan Myers, KC, King's Counsel, an eminent Melbourne KC, who I happen to know personally, is the president of the Samuel Griffith Society, which was established to fight for the proper preservation and interpretation of Australia's Constitution. He says, High Court judges should not be innovators remaking society. Their duty is to administer the law and thereby to keep the foundations of society steady. If they are unhappy with the constraints of judicial office, they should resign from office and seek election to Parliament where the laws are made. Clear? Judges, activist judges, creating whole new bodies of law just because it happens to tickle their fancy. That's trashing the rule of law. The next trashing of the rule of law is the New South Wales Judicial Commission, quote, therapeutic justice, end quote, manual that directs judges to adopt racial stereotypes by considering, quote, pervasive intergenerational effects of settler colonialism, end quote, when sentencing Indigenous defendants. The Commission also recommends judges apply cultural stereotypes to other groups. For example, to Muslims who may have, quote, a sense of personal responsibility to react to world events in the context of religious injunctions to support others of the same faith, end quote. In other words, our judges are told to interpret law in different ways depending on who is before them. That is crap. That is trashing the rule of law. I call on rejection of such ridiculous directions to judges. The next one. One of my friends is a pilot taking action for being wrongfully dismissed at the start of the outrageous attack on our freedoms in 2020. The airline that he is suing is using every legal trick in the book to avoid the matter being heard by the courts. And even though the judge says stop playing games, they keep playing games. Guess what that does? That means that normal citizens of this country and many countries around the world cannot afford to stand up for their rights. That's a trashing of the rule of law. If you can't afford to go to court because of the stunts pulled by big business and by government, you are trashing the rule of law. You are not giving people access to justice. It's very clear. Judges have to stop big business and government using tactics to stop cases being run against them. Next, two more examples. Mary Holland, I moderated a meeting with her. She's the president and chief executive of Children's Health Defence, a wonderful organisation fighting for the protection of children, particularly from bad medical intervention. And Children's Health Defence funds cases against big pharmaceutical companies, against government for decisions that harm children. In those cases, many judges are simply trashing the rule of law because they're not following the rule of law, or they're denying standing to the Children's Health Defence. Now, Mary raised the issue that courts follow culture. Alan Myers, you will note I said earlier, courts should not be creating a new society. And Mary Holland, who also happens to be a lawyer, she also points out that courts follow culture. So if a society supports woke agenda, which the High Court is doing, then the judges will follow that new cultural move. However, that is a bad thing, in the sense that it's not the words that are being interpreted by the judges. That's a trashing of the rule of law, because Parliament, when it passes the laws, it's using words. And then that leads to the last issue on this trashing of the rule of law, is the meaning of words. Now, the law is written in words, and of course, recently, because of the transgender crap, the meaning of man and woman can't even be defined by many chief health officers. Can you believe that? I know what a man is. I know what a woman is. A man has a penis. A woman has a vagina. But no, they want to play tiptoe around this issue, a matter that you thought all your life was very clear. So, if man and woman is not clear, what words are clear? And if words aren't clear, that's deliberately trashing the rule of law. And then where that leads to is this state of confusion, because you can't get engaged in an issue if you're totally confused. If you are confused, you don't engage. And what I say is that is the deliberate trashing of the rule of law, because our society is controlled, governed, created by our laws. But if people don't know what words mean, then who the hell knows what's going on? So this message to you today is to understand the games that are being played by the globalist agenda, which is to create a one world government, literally to trash all the constitutions on the planet. And they're saying this is for the good of all humanity. Don't worry about your life. This is for the good of humanity. Well, I am worried about your life. I am worried about the lives of my children and my grandchildren. I am worried about the lives of those in my community, and I urge you to be worried about it and to stand up to protect the way of life that you want to live, not imposed by some globalist, Marxist, socialist agenda. Clear? So, what to do about this? I have 5 recommendations. I could give you 15, but 5 will do, because in the interest of time, I might do another show on additional recommendations on how we fight practically to preserve the rule of law, because a good, well-run legal system ensures a good, well-run society. The first one is, I urge you to take an interest in learning the law. Take an interest in how the legal system works. Take an interest in how your country is structured. If you learn the law, then you can have a view about what's happening. If you have no knowledge of it, you will just let it go right over your head. I say this is important to have a good understanding of the legal system. Second, I ask lawyers to stop being so overwhelmingly focused on making money from the profession. I even now help people in legal matters, but as a lawyer, I would help those who could not pay for services. And it's shocking to me how few lawyers are willing to help people with serious matters that seriously affect their lives, and yet are only willing to act when they receive their full, ridiculously high income levels, their hourly rates, if you like. Lawyers have to understand that they are part of this system, and if they're not willing to protect the rule of law by not giving people access to justice and the courts, the lawyers are part of the problem, and I say they're overwhelmingly part of the problem. I call on them to act in a way as well demonstrated by the Pacific Justice Institute in America, where Brad Dacus has done a fantastic job. He has established 29 legal offices in 22 states under the name Pacific Justice Institute. Have a look at its website, pji.org, and it provides its legal services for free. It is funded through donations only. What a magnificent contribution to society the Pacific Justice Institute is making. Thirdly, I call on governments to fund cases. And if there are important issues and a judge can decide this is an important issue, then the government should never ask for costs against private litigants. Should never. And costs should never be awarded against private litigants except on a basis reasonable for their financial standing. I also call on judges to be harsher on knocking cases out that are clearly without merit. So if a case has merit, then it's really quite easy. I'm telling you, as a lawyer, I got my law degree 51 years ago. I'm telling you, it is very easy to make a decision on what is an important case that should be funded by government and what is not. Next, I call on you to donate to legal funds. Every $10 that you give to a legal cause is worth doing. My vision is to have 1 million Australians donating $10 a week to a legal fund to fund the cases that need to be funded to protect your freedom, to protect the law, to protect your access to justice. And then lastly, join organisations that support these principles. So 2 in particular that I support are the Samuel Griffith Society. You can look these up on the website. Samuel Griffith Society and the Institute of Public Affairs. Both of those organisations fight for the proper application of the rule of law. The rule of law being trashed is bad for you. It gives rise to bikie gangs. It gives rise to criminal gangs. It is bad for society. It is bad for you. So I hope the issues I've discussed today make a beneficial difference to your life. And I say they will, because I need you, I need every Australian, I need every person around the world to understand the importance of the rule of law. I want you to live your life on your terms and to make what you are capable of making of it, and not hiding in a corner saying, I can't do anything to protect my rights to live life on my terms. Yes, you can. If you're new to the show, check the links to the foundational principles of the show and my background, and also our websites, and to check those free resources and also my books, etc. Again, thanks for watching or listening. And until our next show, may your week be full of passion, full of a willingness to embrace the challenges that this wonderful gift of life gives to us. A week of fun, of fulfillment, and ever-increasing self-awareness, so that you have a deep awareness of what it means to live life on your terms. Thanks for being with us. See you next week. Bye.